views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Kibin, Alleyne, and today is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Coming up, the FDA issued the final guidance with voluntary targets for reducing sodium in commercially processed foods. Will it be enough to combat high rates of heart disease? Then, the New York State Senate passed an act in support of survivors of abuse and assault. After seeking justice through the court system, what are the steps towards healing? After that, the HOPE program joins us for a discussion on an initiative aimed to make the Bronx more eco-friendly. What changes can you make to your home to live more sustainably? And discussion on stocks and cryptocurrency have made waves across social media. Co-founders of Bronx Crypto will give us a quick lesson on all things digital currency. Will the new money-making landscape remain a challenge for low-income families? So please stick around. Open BXRX Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Since the start of the pandemic, many people began taking a closer look at their overall health. Now, the Food and Drug Administration released new SALT guidelines as heart disease continues to be the nation's leading cause of death. We'll now look at a quick video released from the FDA on salt intake.
You may have heard too much sodium leads to high blood pressure, a leading cause of heart disease and stroke. Over 70% of sodium you eat comes from packaged and restaurant foods. Tossing the salt shaker may not help much, but trying new approaches may have a bigger impact. Deli meats, pizza, burritos and tacos, soups, and savory snacks, to name a few. Before you buy, check the labels to compare the sodium content of different brands of the same types of products. You may be surprised that there's a fair amount of variety among similar foods. Aim to stay under the recommended daily value for sodium. As a general guide, 5% DV or less of sodium per serving is considered low, and 20% DV or more of sodium per serving is considered high. Add more flavor to your food. Try no salt seasoning blends and herbs and spices instead of salt. For more information, check out our website.
Joining us for discussion on the guidelines is Dr. Marlene Schwartz, Director of the Rudd Center for Food Policy and Health. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question, just to start it all off, is can you just explain what sodium is?
What sodium is? Sodium is a mineral, and it is added to foods for a few reasons. One is it helps preserve the food, which helps with food safety, and it also adds flavoring to the food.
Okay, so the FDA issued guidelines for reducing sodium in commercially processed, packaged, and prepared food over the next 2.5 years. The FDA reports that Americans consume on average 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day, nearly 50% more than the recommended limit. Can you explain why this is a problem in regards to health?
Sure. So one of the major concerns about excess sodium intake is that it increases hypertension, which is high blood pressure, which in turn increases your risk of stroke and heart disease. And those are two of the major killers in the United States. So clearly, if we want to try to decrease those health problems, we need to take a step back and decrease people's consumption of sodium.
So now I think this may be like a little controversial, but do you think these companies should be held accountable for the amount of salt, sugar in foods, or is it our responsibility as consumers?
So I definitely feel like the companies hold a lot of responsibility. There are a few reasons for this. I think that, we as consumers certainly can try to make the best choices we have, but we're limited to what's available in the store. And I also think that among lower income Americans, they often have even fewer choices because they're trying to find the sort of getting the most food for their money, which often means leading to more processed foods. And so it's really up to the companies to make sure that the foods that are available are the healthiest that they can be.
That kind of segues into my next question. I recently learned that majority of sodium consumed comes from processed and packaged food and not from just adding salt to your food. So I know a lot of people who go to the doctor, they may be told like, hey, you need to cut down on the salt. And I wanted to know, how does this affect low income families in particular? Because I know we often hear that families who are low income have a lot more problems when it comes to health, just in general.
Exactly. I think that, depending on where you live, you have a very different food environment. And there has been a lot of research showing that neighborhoods where people live, the types of foods that are available to them can really influence their health. So I think we need to really focus on making sure that the choices that are out there are healthy and that we aren't sort of taking the least healthy choices, the most processed foods, and sort of making those super available, like in every convenience store and gas station, and there's vending machines all over the place. So it's sort of ironic that the most inexpensive, highly palatable, available foods are the very ones that we're trying to encourage people to eat less of. And certainly people who are lower income and have those financial constraints are the ones that are going to have the hardest time, going and has sort of buying the fresher foods if they're not available, number one. And number two, because you want things that are shelf stable if you don't have time to go shopping all the time. So that's another problem that can then factor into this.
And I understand that you actually kind of look at this closely when it comes to food, like school meals and charitable food system. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So we've been doing a lot of research in school food. And, the good news is, certainly since I've been studying this, which really dates back to the 1990s, the food in schools has gotten a lot better. And that was really because of federal regulation and really requiring that school meals and the snacks sold in schools meet certain requirements. And sodium was one of the nutrients they really paid attention to. And the reason it worked is because when you have requirements for a setting as big as schools, the food industry that wants to continue selling their food in schools has no choice. They need to reformulate, they need to create healthier snacks, they need to, cut the sodium in some of the other products that they sell to schools. So that's why I really feel like sort of the federal regulation leading the industry to make changes is how ultimately we're going to see really big effects. But one of the challenges is that the regulations changed as a result of the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. And I have heard through some of our research that food service directors have a hard time finding a lot of different choices for things, particularly in the grain category, pastas, pizza crusts, things like that, that meet the sodium requirements. So that's why I think it's just really important that we continue to put the pressure on the industry to reformulate. The other setting you asked about was the Charitable Food Network. So that is a national network of food banks, which are sort of like these big warehouses. There's probably about between 200 and 250 of those around the country. And then food pantries, which is often what people think of. Those are the, sort of churches or community organizations that have a place where people can actually come and pick up the food. And one of the things that's been really interesting in studying this network is, of course, having shelf stable food is incredibly important because a lot of those food pantries have limited refrigeration and they're also open limited hours. And so you really need to make sure that you have food available for people when they can come and get it. And the food there is donated. So again, you really are depending on the food industry to have the healthy products in the first place so that people can then donate them to food banks and food pantries, and people who, are having trouble affording enough food are able to go and access those healthier foods.
As we know, the FDA issued the final guidance with voluntary targets for reducing sodium in commercially processed food. Do you think this is a step in the right direction?
Well, it's definitely a step in the right direction. As I mentioned before, I think a lot of the big changes will be seen when there are a little bit stronger regulations where it's not just sort of a voluntary recommendation, but actually a regulation. And this is kind of the way it works. What I've learned sort of from being in this field for a while is oftentimes you start off with something that's voluntary, you start off with a recommendation, and that really gives the food industry time to figure out the best strategy, to reformulate, to try to meet the recommendations. But eventually, I think it will be important for there to be a little bit of a stronger regulation, particularly as I mentioned, for foods that are like sold in schools or in another setting where you have people that you feel like need particular protection.
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because that is a very key word, voluntary. And so that doesn't mean that they have to do it, but it's kind of like encouraged for them to do it. So I'm really happy that you pointed that out. So the FDA hopes to decrease the average sodium intake by about 12%. Do you think that's enough, or should it be a little bit more?
So again, it's sort of strategy, right? Like you have your wish list, you have like the amount that it would need to decrease to actually meet the recommendations, which would be more than that. But at the same time, I think when you're trying, especially with behavior change, whether it's behavior change with people or behavior change with companies, it's still behavior change. And a lot of times you're better off starting gradually, starting with something that feels attainable, that feels manageable. And often when it comes to reformulating food, it's a big investment on the part of the food companies to come up with new formulas for their products. And they worry, my impression is from sort of hearing them over the years, is that they worry about it not tasting as good. They worry about their competitors' food still tasting better. So you kind of need to nudge all of them at the same time slowly, so that number one, consumers can get used to the changes in the taste, and two, that the competitors are kind of doing the same thing. And so I think it's a good strategy. I think it makes sense to do it this way, but it definitely isn't maybe as dramatic or as strong of a regulation as some sort of health advocates would have wanted.
So as I mentioned before, it's a little tricky to control, considering high sodium intake isn't from just simply adding too much salt to your dish. What's one tip you have for reading nutrition labels, and what should we look for and what should we avoid?
So, I'm so happy that we have nutrition labels and I actually am really pleased with the changes that took place just a couple years ago. They were updated. So now they're, the sort of font is bigger, the calories is a lot bigger. I think that, there's a lot of numbers there, and it is hard to keep a lot of numbers in your head. So, you could try to just focus on that DV column, which is the daily value, percent daily value. And so for a lot of the nutrients, it will tell you if it's, exactly. So for a lot of them, it'll show what the percent daily value is. And basically, you can look and see if it's a low number for, like, this product that is on right now is 19% daily value. So that's pretty high. I think you want to go to sort of no more than 5% daily value. And then once it's really getting like up 19, 20%, I think that's a high sodium product. There are labels oftentimes that are regulated by the FDA. So something has to be, I think, below 130 milligrams of sodium to be considered low sodium. And so you can go by that low sodium, but a lot of products, it's just not labeled on the front of the pack. You have to actually look at the back of the pack.
All right, doctor, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Could you just let everybody know where they can keep in contact or stay in touch with your organization?
Oh, sure. So the Yukon Red Center, our website is yukonredcenter.org. We do have a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for there. And then we're also on Twitter and, in addition, on Facebook.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption
of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is
Welcome back. Not too long ago, the New York State Senate passed the Adult Survivors Act in support of survivors of abuse and assault. This move inspired our next discussion on support towards all survivors of abuse. Joining us for a discussion on the organization The Morris Center is Bo Smith, adult survivor of child abuse and an outreach and communications volunteer with the Morris Center for Healing from Child Abuse. Bo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So can you first just start off by telling me more about your organization, the Morris Center, and what they do in regards to survivors of abuse?
Sure. The Morris Center started just in 1991 by Dr. George Bellotta, who was initially just looking at focusing on survivors of childhood abuse that had sexual abuse and incest. In 1993, he developed that he hired Patrick Gannon, who's a clinical director or as a advisor to start a program for adult survivors of child abuse of all kinds of abuse, mental, emotional, or neglect. When that happened, Patrick decided that it'd be a good idea to have a self-help support group program. So he recruited volunteers in the San Francisco Bay Area. They had a meeting, came together, and actually developed what is now the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Self-Help Support Group program. And in 1998, and just moving forward to be quick about this, we put everything online so that everything was accessible to people around the world to start and have their own self-help support group. So all the materials online. There's co-facilitator training was also developed, and that's also all done online, live and in person, and the organization is all run by volunteers.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So this conversation comes after the New York State Senate passed the Adult Survivors Act, and this legislation would create a one-year window for the revival of time-barred civil lawsuits based on sex crimes committed against individuals who were 18 years of age or older. Can we just use this as a moment to talk about the importance of this in regards to seeking justice?
Yeah, of course, I'm only speaking to my own abuse and witnessing, being in meetings over these years on about seeing abuse survivors, so that were abused as in childhood. So this is not about adults, but the importance of the ability to seek justice in the healing process is really can't be overstated. And the reason for that is, for my personal path, I would not be going that route. Both of my abusers are now dead, and so there would be no point in that. But let's say the abusers were not dead, and they were still in the survivor's life, and maybe even still abusing or threatening them or others. In that case, it would be very important, regardless of the amount of time that passed, if there's a known abuser abusing. And for a healing journey, which is what the Morris Center for Healing from Child Abuse is about in the ASCA program, if that option were not available, then basically the person would be again in a place of disempowerment where they didn't have that option, where the society and culture would not be supporting them. So in effect, it's kind of in support of abuse. It's in, people are not, if our society and the culture that we live in are not providing a space for survivors to heal through whatever means for them, for justice, to get justice, then it's basically another place of disempowerment where society's basically condoning that abuse and it going unchecked.
So this comes just a few years after the Child Victims Act was passed in 2019, and similar to the Adult Survivors Act, for a brief moment in 2020 through 2021, the act extended the statute of limitations regardless of age. With that being said, do you think the way we speak about assault and abuse as a society is changing?
Definitely, I do. And just in the last 10 years, and I think because of organizations like the Moore Center for Healing from Child Abuse that have, launched this topic online, and also seeing people being vocal. One of the things about childhood abuse is we don't talk about it. It's told, the abuser threatens. You don't talk about this. You never speak about this. Well, that's changing. I give a lot of credit to the social media movement in general, and then media like yourself taking the time to cover and have these conversations is very important. So yes, I definitely think the conversation's evolving. It has to do with creating safe and diverse spaces with multiple views and being tolerant to hear these things and to try to connect with our fellows. So the conversation has evolved also on a financial front. Industry is realizing the cost of having survivors of child abuse or survivors of abuse that are experiencing a complex PTSD. It basically is, which all PTSD, complex PTSD is something different, a little different from PTSD, not a single event, but over a series of events over a long period of time, this complex trauma happens where it becomes part of the person's life and their thinking. So when they bring this into the workplace or into their society or their culture, these dysfunctions happen, these reactions happen. They freeze in certain situations, or they overreact, or can't read certain social situations the way that they could. So the conversations change for many reasons on many different fronts, and I see it to continue to evolve because we're also learning that it's not really limited to just a few people. It's quite a terrible, sad to say, normal occurrence, how we have treated our children in the past. And that's an evolutionary process, I think. We're learning that nurturing our children and teaching them to be loving and kind human beings and raising them with words rather than with brutal force, and this idea of retribution and punishment, which brings me to another movement, which is restorative justice. And we're learning how that works as well. So many fronts. The very short answer is yes. I do believe the conversation is evolving, and I'm very happy about that. And it's two programs like this that are making that happen. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that too. And I agree with you. I see it all the time, especially on social media as well. So I want to say that seeking justice through the court system is obviously very important, but so is the emotional well-being of the survivor. You stated that your primary program is the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Self-Help Peer Support Program. Can you tell us more about that program?
Sure. It's a 21-step, 3-stage program, which sounds quite large and overwhelming, but the 3 stages are the remembering of the abuse, because again, and sort of to the topic of the program, the remembering can take years or decades to happen. It could happen because of some triggering event that happens. So this remembering process, where these memories of abuse that have happened over a period of time come to mind over a period of time, and it has to do with the environment we're in, if it's safe for these memories to come up. So that part of remembering, and there's a lot of factors that go into how that happens, and then the part of mourning. Once these memories are recovered, of course, there's a lot of sadness and grief, remembering how one has been abused and mistreated. and how the people that were to care for the person and were trusted to care for the person really have to grieve these wounds, which were not generally allowed in childhood. Well, we're not allowed, which is really part of the trauma, not allowed to express feelings, not allowed to be who they were in a sense, and have whatever feelings they're having. And then the healing stage, which is so different, and every stage is so different. Because there's a program, it doesn't mean that this is how a person recovers. And it's not in any way recommended by the Moore Center that someone has to go through these particular steps or to heal from their wounds from childhood abuse. But the actual healing part is stepping back into life and dealing with life situations, having one's voice, seeking justice. And again, after years of recovery, if there's no, like I said, for myself personally, seeking justice would not be part of my process for healing, because my abusers are dead and I see. But for someone else, that could be a very, very important part of their process. And if that option weren't available, then that would be off the table. So it's about resolving those abuse in my own mind, of how, and me being okay with it, or not okay with it, but me healing and being able to move on with my life and function in society the way I want to live, in short. Yeah.
And what can others do to support survivors?
Yeah. To listen. It's to listen and be with people, and to take them seriously, because these wounds of trauma, of CPT, no one can see them. They're invisible. It's not like you can see I have a broken hand or broken foot or some wound on the exterior of my body. These are all internal wounds, and the person on the outside, looks like everything is just fine. Even their life could be in order. And they in our society, we measure success. We have these Facebook pages, and nobody puts up their misery. Everybody puts up their sadness, their hurts. Or their happy times and their happy faces. And so, those same people that have these personas that they're projecting, they're on the inside, they're suffering. And when these the first stage is I'm in a breakthrough crisis, remembering, it can really be shattering. And on the outside, one may be looking at the person and saying, you have everything going for you. I don't understand, your health is there. Maybe your health is there, maybe it's not there, but maybe your health is there. And so having empathy and compassion and having an open mind about, and being okay with not understanding, and just being present with that person, guiding the person to help, professional help, and supporting them in that way, and asking them what they want to do instead of, again, directing them or putting onto them. There's the sort of the core of the program is to rediscover our own voice. And ask and let them decide what they need, and then help and support them in doing that.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Before you go, can you just let everyone know where they can learn more about your organization or join these programs?
Sure. Yeah. So you can go to our website, which is www.askasupport, and we're also on Facebook. But on our website, you can download materials to start your own self-help support group. There's help there for co-facilitating, coaching and training to be a co-facilitator of a support group. And that everything's right there online. It's free of charge. There's no cost for any material, any support group. Nobody will ever be approached for any monies. We do, of course, take donations though. But thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
Welcome back. The HOPE program's Cool Roof initiative work towards a greener New York City. Here to talk to us about the program and the possibility of an eco-friendly Bronx is Executive Director for the HOPE program, Jennifer Mitchell. Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.
So can you first just start off by telling us more about your organization?
Sure, I would love to. So I am the executive director of the HOPE program. And the HOPE program is a nearly 40-year-old nonprofit. We operate serving folks in all 5 boroughs. We have program sites in Brooklyn and in, of course, the Bronx. And what we do is we give folks who are unemployed and struggling to get back into the workforce for a variety of reasons, the tools and the skills and the training and the network and the confidence they need to get back into the workforce. And not only get back into the workforce, but keep a job and build a career. We have a saying at HOPE: when you're HOPE for life. And what that means is we stick with people well after their first job to help them navigate the struggles and challenges that come with keeping that job and building a career. We also celebrate all the good things that happen, the promotions, the wage gains, the contributing to their community and their family. And so we're really proud of the work we do at HOPE. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about one of our 6 programs, the Cool Roofs program.
Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about the Cool Roofs program. But before we do that, can you just tell me why workforce development programs are so important in the Bronx?
Sure. And it's a great question. So the HOPE program, as I said, has a nearly 40-year track record of doing this work. And about 7 years ago, we expanded to have a program site in the Bronx through a partnership with a nonprofit that has its roots in the Bronx, Sustainable South Bronx. And Sustainable South Bronx was started nearly 2 decades ago to address the environmental justice inequities in the Bronx, and really found that the most kind of valuable and positive thing you can do is train local people so that they are able to solve local problems while earning a living and contributing to their family and putting food on the table. And so here we are, 2021, hopefully coming out of a global pandemic. And we are faced with 2 very interesting things. There are local employers in desperate need of great, well-trained employees, and there is mass unemployment and lots of people struggling and not earning the income they need. And so that's where HOPE comes in, and that's where other workforce development organizations come in too. What we do is we make those links, right? And so at HOPE, all of our programs aim to give folks that skill, that network, that confidence, and the hard skills as well, the certifications they need to get those jobs and fill those jobs. And often the people we serve who are coming to us, with maybe histories of incarceration or histories of substance abuse or low educational attainment levels or struggles with mental health issues or past traumas, they don't have the access or the skill set to navigate how to get those jobs that are available. And then those employers don't know about this like amazing source of hardworking, well-trained, well-skilled labor. And so what Hope does is we make those links and make those connections so that employers have great labor and people living in the Bronx and Brooklyn and all the rest of the boroughs have access to well-paying high road jobs.
So thank you so much for that. I think one of your really cool programs that I recently just learned about is your Cool Roof program. So can you first start off just talking about what is a cool roof and how did that initiative begin?
Sure. So Hope, in partnership with Sustainable South Bronx and New York City Small Business Services, has been doing the Cool Roofs program for nearly 7 years. And Cool Roofs program in New York City has been in existence for over a decade now. And what it is, it's a program that aims to make New York City, which experiences what's called the urban heat island effect. So it gets very, very hot. New York City has a lot of blacktop and very little vegetation. And so, you hear about other things like solar installations and green rooftops, and all those are really important too. But almost the easiest or most simple way to address the urban heat island effect is by painting rooftops with this thick silicone paint that's white. And if you paint, you can see the picture right there. If you paint the rooftops white, instead of absorbing the heat and making both the city and the buildings that are absorbing the heat hotter, they're actually reflecting the heat and making the buildings themselves more energy efficient and the city itself cooler.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. So that's the process, just painting it white with a special paint. You paint your roof white. Is this something that people can do at home themselves?
So it probably is. I don't actually know if the paint is available in like your local hardware shop, but certainly we could find that out and circle back. But even if people don't use this special paint, if somebody wanted to paint their rooftop white, it would have an impact. The paint we use is special and has been proven. I mean, it's really cool. When we're out on those rooftops, our crew can take the temperature of the rooftop with like no coating on it, and then take the temperature of the rooftop just when we even have one coating of paints on it and see a huge temperature difference. And every rooftop we do gets 2 really thick layers of coating on it.
So I understand that there also may be like an eligibility requirement for certain buildings. How do you know what building is right for this type of project?
So we do the Cool Roofs program in partnership with New York City Small Business Services. So it's an environmental program making New York City more energy efficient and cooler. And it is also a workforce development program. And as a workforce development program, every year we hire 70 unemployed individuals who are looking to get back into the workforce and are interested in energy efficiency or interested in construction or interested in getting skills in those related fields. And we put them to work and they work 10 weeks, 30 hours a week for $15 an hour. And at the same time they're working, they're also getting the skills they need to get back into the workforce. In our contract with New York City Small Business Services, we can provide this service for free to any building that's a nonprofit or affordable housing provider. Then, in addition, we recently this year got a grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, which allowed us to expand and offer those services for free to buildings in Hunts Point specifically that are industrial, because that can really make a big difference. And then other buildings in the city that are interested in this service, we can do for low cost. We can provide the labor for free, but the building needs to purchase the paint and everything. And we help coordinate that all the time. And then to figure out if a building is actually eligible for this, we send out our team during our off season. You can only paint roofs cool between April and October. because if it gets too cold, the paint won't work. It'll freeze. And so in that off season is when we go out and inspect rooftops and figure out which roofs are safe, which roofs would benefit from it, and all of that sort of stuff. So if somebody's interested in having their rooftop evaluated for a cool roof, later in the show, we'll give contact information and folks can find out, and we can send one of our crew members out to assess.
So I'm super curious to understand the science behind that. And I just want to know, like, how does this make things more eco-friendly?
Yeah. So if you just think about just like yourself, if you were wearing like a really dark top on a really hot day, you're absorbing the heat more. But if you go and you put on really like a light colored one, the heat gets reflected more. If you're in a car that's a really dark color, you're going to absorb the heat more. And lighter colored cars reflect the heat. So the same is true on rooftops in New York City. And so all it's really about the sun getting reflected instead of getting absorbed onto the rooftop.
And can you tell us the importance of just introducing, something as sustainable like this to the Bronx?
So the Bronx is one of the most kind of industrial heavy, has many more industrial heavy neighborhoods than some of the other boroughs. And so there's a lot of rooftops that you can have an impact on. And so with the urban heat island effect, the more rooftops that you paint with this special white coating, the more energy efficient buildings become. And then also the more energy efficient those neighborhoods become. Also important in the Bronx is because many of the folks we serve through this program and all of our other programs get, in this program, it's transitional employment. So they're getting paid while they're earning these skills and contributing to making their borough more energy efficient. And so, yeah, it's kind of, I think of this program as a win-win-win. It's a win for the people living in the buildings and for the climate. It's a win for the people participating because they're gaining skills and earning money at the same time. And then it's a win for the employers at the end of the day who get these amazing, hardworking, inspirational, knowledgeable individuals to fill the jobs that they need.
So how can viewers get involved and then learn more about the HOPE program?
Great. So we will put up, I think, the information, but we have a website, www.thehopeprogram.org. We also have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and a Twitter page. Oh, and LinkedIn also. So lots of ways to follow us and get involved. We are always looking for new participants into our programs. We're always looking for employer partners. We're always looking for building owners who are interested in learning about cool roofs to the rooftop. And we're always looking for volunteers and partners and donors and funders. So lots of things to do at Hope, lots of work to be done to make this world and this city more environmental friendly and energy efficient, and lots of people who need the training and skills to get jobs. So please join us in this mission. I think Hope's future is bright, and we'd love to have more people as part of it.
All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. This was great.
We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back. In recent months, a rising number of individuals have taken an interest in all things stocks and cryptocurrency. Here to discuss their organization, Bronx Crypto, and teach us a few things about the world of digital currency are co-founders of Bronx Crypto, Julio Barrios and Andrew Richards. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So I just want to start off talking a little bit more about your organization. Can you just tell us about Bronx Crypto?
Sure. So my name is Julio. I decided to start Bronx Crypto with my partner, Andrew. It's an educational learning platform where we teach about cryptocurrency and stocks. We felt the need to bring this financial literacy advice to the people of the Bronx, of our borough, specifically Latino and African American. We feel like we have been forgotten. This is knowledge that unfortunately our parents were not taught. Our parents are a little bit old school. They go to work, they save their money under the mattress, and hopefully they can buy a house. But times have changed. We are in 2021 where we have record levels of debt, inflation, and economic uncertainty. And we decided to create Bronx Crypto because we felt like we needed to get this information out to the public, because if not, they are at risk of suffocating slowly with taxes and inflation.
Now, I would really like to know what cryptocurrency actually is. It's a really hot topic and everybody's talking about it on social media. So can you explain what is cryptocurrency and how does that work?
Yes. So a cryptocurrency is a new method of payment, a new method to send money all over the world without government permission. The beautiful thing about cryptocurrency is that it's decentralized. When I say decentralization, it means that it relies on networks of computers to remain an open digital ledger, an open source, where we can all look into transactions and see what's really going on. We need this in the financial system because there is a lot of stuff that goes on under the table. There's a lot of corruption that goes on in the financial markets, and we are oblivious to it. But with decentralization and the creation of blockchain, we are able to monitor these transactions and actually bring truth and trust to the market. So now that we have cryptocurrency has basically taken the same properties of money and converted it into a digitalized way, where now what we're seeing is mass adoption. And we're going to have companies like Apple, Amazon, PayPal, Square. They're all going to be accepting these cryptocurrencies because they are basically money. We're using cryptocurrency now with our bank accounts. Whenever we use Zelle or we Cash App, it's the same meaning of cryptography, a hidden message that no one could double spend or counterfeit. No one could take. This is the issue with our current money. Our government can just print money without regard and just influx our market with money, and that creates inflation. With cryptocurrency, you cannot duplicate this. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, one Ethereum is one Ethereum, and we'll break down further along what's Bitcoin, what's Ethereum. We don't want to overwhelm the viewers because it does take baby steps to understand this. And that's why we provide a crypto course, a stock course, and all these avenues so people could get their information from.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that because I wanted to talk about stocks a little bit too. That's another thing that's been like all over the news, all over social media, but it can be a little bit tricky for people to understand. So, can you talk a little bit about what stocks are?
All right, so basically, stocks are having a partial ownership of a company. How stocks work is the way that stocks work is a work as a company shares in their business to raise money. Once a company stock is in the market, it can either be bought or sold. So as the value of a company goes up, you can either make money, and when the stock goes down, is either when people are selling their shares of the company.
Now, on your website, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, but you stated wanting to teach the average person how to invest in digital assets and stocks. Why was it important for you to have this accessible to Bronxites?
Okay, like I said earlier, we have lacked this information for so many years, and I'll use myself as an example. I don't want to date myself, but in 1999, in the year 2000, we saw the first digitalization happening. It was the beginning of the internet, and many companies came out of the internet and revolutionized the world and made a lot of people a lot of money. These companies are Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple. I could continue. The same digitalization is happening 20 years forward, but now it's happening to money with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and all these other digital assets in the space.
So, there's always been a conversation about access to this type of information. In most cases, people become financially literate and successful through connections from parents or, friends that are well off. Can you explain how this world of Bitcoin and stocks can be more challenging for low-income families in the Bronx?
So it could be a little bit challenging because the information, it's new terms, it's big words, long definitions, and sometimes that could be a little bit intimidating. And that's why we decided to bridge the gap. That's why we decided to take this information and simplify it in a way that the average person could understand it, because this information is for everyone. And this information is actually online. But we have a lot of members that say, Julio, Andrew, I just saw this video on YouTube and I still don't get it. What's this? What's that? And that's when we can take the time and break it down in a format where they can understand.
So, for so long, people were actually, I feel, purposely kept out of these conversations in regards to stocks and crypto. And it is still very, as you mentioned, hard to navigate today. But do you think social media has helped bridge the gap between those who were left out and those who historically always had access?
Yes, social media is revolutionizing the world that we live in every day. Every day, the internet and social media is becoming more a part of our lives. If you just look at how we buy things, how we spend our money, we swipe our phones, we swipe our Apple Watches, and this is heading in that trajectory of the digitalization. I feel like it's true. Stocks have always been kind of like a secret society, because usually you need a big amount of capital to start your initial investment. But with cryptocurrency, the prices are so cheap at this moment because we're so early in the beginning stages that the average person, just making it check to check can afford to invest little by little.
And Andrew, I'd really love to hear your opinion on that as well. Just the fact that, maybe social media has made it more easily accessible to people who've never had access before.
Yeah, basically because the promotion of like these companies giving out the knowledge of cryptocurrency, like these ads, you have like platforms like Coinbase promoting cryptocurrency. So you can see that big institutions are are getting involved into these cryptocurrencies. So I feel like everyone else are getting interested into the crypto space as well, and stock space as well.
So I think we all know a few months ago, we saw a huge surge of people who were interested in this new way of making money. And I think every post was either talking about like AMC or stocks or crypto, all these things. What are some tips that you have for people who are new to this, but they can still kind of understand what's going on?
So what tips I have is basically don't believe everything you see on social media, because there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of speculation towards cryptocurrencies, also as well as stocks. So you have to be mindful. You got to do your due diligence and do your research before you invest into anything. That's what we tell all our members, and we take that very, very important and very crucial in our investing journey.
And Julio, do you have any tips?
Yes, the first tip is, like Andrew said, do your own research, involve yourself in a community of people who have the same goal, which is to learn, to invest, and to share ideas. The second thing is, don't invest something that you can't afford to lose. We're talking investing, but we also got to take into consideration that we all have lives, we all have bills, we all have jobs, expenses. So I don't want anyone to go and take their kids' college fund or their emergency fund and put it on this crypto or this stock that has a lot of hype behind it, because this is the way people get hurt. You know, you want to take your time, get into the market slowly, and when you grow that sense of confidence, and then you can start making those moves on your own when you become a more experienced trader. See, here at Bronx Crypto, we want to introduce you. We want to raise awareness, but we are not here to baby you. We are here to eventually have your wings expand and let you fly away on your own.
So that's amazing. And I want to thank you both so much for joining us. Can you tell us more about where people can learn about your programs or read what you have to offer and just stay in touch with your organization?
All right, so basically on our website, when you go to the services tab, we have a stocks for beginners course that you can purchase for $50. Also, we have a crypto for beginners course as well to purchase. So if you have no idea what cryptocurrencies is, we break it down to some simpler terms and whatnot, so you can understand what blockchain technology is, what Bitcoin is, what Ethereum is, and much more. Also, with the stocks course, we break it down. We teach about dividends, ETFs, and different avenues you can take towards investing into stocks. Also, we have a Discord chat room platform where we have all our investors engage, where we come together and help the community build awareness about investing and financial literacy as well.
With that being said, cryptocurrency stocks investing is to make money, correct? But the main thing behind it is to protect yourself. Protect yourself from the rising levels of inflation. That's the number one thing you need to take away from this interview today, because the inflation, there's just too much debt in the system. Every country in Latin America is in debt, including Europe and including America. And if we don't take this serious, the same thing that happened in 2008, 2009 will happen again on steroids. I don't want to fear monger, but this is definitely serious business.
Well, I appreciate the passion, and I appreciate you both taking the time to speak with us today. So yes, once again, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you so much, BronxNet.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin and Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.